Actress Rose McGowan has slammed the Democrats, saying she used to think they were the good guys. And the newspapers, the New York Times, the Washington Post were on their side. They were good people doing good journalism. She's calling them out. Why? They're defending Joe Biden. You see, this is a story of the Me Too movement, of Time's Up. Women calling for accountability for men who've often gotten away with abusing women. In this Me Too movement, there have been many really awful people who have been held accountable. There have been some innocent people who have been thrown under the bus. But right now, news organizations, many of them, and activists, are defending Joe Biden, even though he's been accused. There are multiple corroborating witnesses and potentially evidence that could exonerate Joe Biden, but it's sealed. And only he has the permission, only he can grant the permission to actually have those documents released, unless or until he leaves public life 2 years after the fact. Alyssa Milanos, a leader in the Me Too movement, has defended Joe Biden. And boy, did she get slammed for it. She wrote a story, she wrote an op-ed, saying, "This is why I am standing by Joe Biden." And boy, is it a sloppy, disgusting mess. She's just desperate to support the machine. It was not that long ago that Rose McGowan called out Alyssa Milanos, calling her a fraud, a shill for the Democrats. And now Rose McGowan, just the other night, she snapped. And I'm not trying to say that in a disrespectful way, but she went on Twitter. She posted a picture of herself crying, saying the Democrats are not, basically, they're not the good guys. You know what, man? I know a lot of people have gone through this in the past few years. Some friends of mine have gone through this. Look, a lot of people like to say like Tim is a Democrat or things like that, or he's a liberal. You can call me whatever you want. And I'll be as honest as I can be, right? I've been enthused by certain Democrats, but I'm not some diehard. I didn't go around waving D flags and you know, marching around with wearing blue and yelling about Republicans and all this other nonsense. But I did grow up in Chicago, so my sensibilities were always quite liberal. You grow up in a city like Chicago, that's how you're going to see the world. But there's something else to growing up in Chicago. The only party is the Democratic Party. That means every time you get screwed over by a politician, every time something falls through or a promise isn't kept, it's the Democrats. You grow up in a place like this, maybe not everybody, but for me, and I'm like, I don't care for these people. I really, really don't. They're hypocrites and they're liars, for the most part. I still, you know, when it comes to policy, I lean in that direction. That's why I'm hopeful for sane, rational, honest people. I like Andrew Yang, for instance. But we don't get that. Andrew Yang, of course, isn't going to get a chance to win. They're going to prop up some crony loser like Joe Biden. Poor old man can't even talk straight, and they're propping him up. And then when he gets accused, they will run defense for him, as will the mainstream media. So let me tell you something, man. I have been lied about in the press. I have been lied about by activists. I have seen how this machine works. And this explains my personal bias, at least to a certain degree. Let me self-analyze for you. Rose McGowan lived her life believing the Democrats were the good guys. And she's only now learning that they will abandon you and their supposed principles at a moment's notice if it's politically expedient. You had Obama for 8 years, so you didn't really see this. It's nearly a decade. Now that we're entering a new era and Donald Trump is the president, you see what happens. I remember the protests against Bush, but come on, man, let's be real. Bush and Cheney was awful. I'm sure there were some good things, but come on, Halliburton, foreign policy, Iraq, Afghanistan, there's a lot of stuff to go through. And I'll admit, I was much younger back then and not as active, so I'm sure there are some things I'm missing in this picture. But now we're all a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and the Democrats are propping up a man who has been, dare I say, credibly accused. See, for me, when I look at Republicans, what do I see? I see a bunch of people I disagree with. I see a loudmouth braggart like Donald Trump, and I'm like, I don't know, whatever. I mean, it's politics, you know what I mean? Do I see massive cultural influential power? No. Alyssa Milanos, Rose McGowan, Hollywood celebrities. Hollywood, one of the most influential industries in the world. They put it in a movie, boom, propaganda. That's what I'm concerned about. And it seems like the media and the Democrats' narrative often align, and they're often lying. Now, I'll tell you what, I've seen some stupid things said by some Republicans too, but guess what? As I've pointed out over and over again, we've seen Republicans get thrown under the bus by their own party. And I think the reason is the cultural establishment is controlled by the left. I'm taking a lot of time up with a rant. Let's read what Rose McGowan said and actually get into the story. She lashes out at Democrats saying, "Now I know too much." Actress Rose McGowan posted a teary-eyed selfie, along with a missive lamenting the Democratic establishment and the media Wednesday night following the fallout from assault allegations against Vice President Joe Biden. She said, "I used to be a proud Democrat. I used to be a proud American." You know what? I met Rose McGowan once, and she talked a lot about this stuff, and this was a long time ago, well before the Me Too movement. Look, I was at some big event for like, I don't know exactly what the event was supposed to be, but it was like a private retreat for like media personalities, high profile personalities. And she was talking a lot about this stuff. At least that's what I remember. From what I understand, she's been consistent this whole way through. Not perfectly, of course, but she has called out other people in the past. And I know a lot of people, they might respect what she's doing now, but they've criticized her for past, misgivings or whatever. But I respect this. And I feel bad for her. I really do. I couldn't imagine, growing up being told you were doing the right thing only to find out you were a cog in a machine of manipulation and evil. Here's what she tweeted. "I'm really sad. I'm really tired. I normally share thoughts, but tonight it's emotion." Let's pull up her tweet. So we actually just get into the Twitter here and see what she actually released a statement. You can see she's crying in this photo. Here's what she said. "I used to be a proud Democrat. I used to be a proud American. I would have died for this damned country and its ideals. I was raised to be a proud Democrat. When my youngest brother graduated as a fighter pilot at the Air Force Academy, I wore a Vote John Kerry pin, LOL. Got into verbal altercations with big men who were mad I was a Democrat. They were twice my size, and I had to listen to George W. Bush give the keynote address and John Ashcroft sing his terrible Eagle song. I lost count of GWB saying terrorism at 47 because that's what cult leaders do, and it gets boring. All because I thought democracy meant was I had a right to choose those who lined up with my value system. But what if there's no one? And I was always told it was the Democratic Party that were the good guys, that our papers were the New York Times and the Washington Post. And we as a family loved listening to All Things Considered, and we'd talk about how much we loved Ira Glass's voice. But now I know too much, and I feel really quite a sense of loss. I am not a cynical person, but America, goddamn, Republicans have always been painted as the bad guys, and I've always seen them as more as a cult. But now I realize so are the Democrats and the media, macro and micro. This is deeper than a cover-up, and I'm sad because there's death round all corners and shadows in the daytime. It hurts. Rose, let me tell you something. I've been watching the news for quite some time, and there are very few honest and good, true Democrats, and it's unfortunate. I think about what I like in terms of policy, and I gotta say, I know a lot of people look. It's Andrew Yang. I mean, go to the dude's website, look at all the policy positions he got. He's a very smart guy, and that's what I was really excited for. I'm like, man, that's like a smart, reasonable breakdown, but it's just him. I mean, when it came to Tulsi Gabbard, which I'm also a big fan, it's mostly about foreign policy because the Democrats were supposed to be the anti-war faction. I mean, especially with George W. Bush. I disagree with Tulsi on some of her policies, like nuclear energy, for instance. But I look to the rest of them, and what do they offer? They don't have anything. Now I look to the Republicans. What do I see? You get people like Steve King, who rightly so was censured and removed from all committees by the Republicans. They did what they had to do to hold the guy accountable. They didn't. Well, some may have tried to defend the guy, and Republicans have defended some pretty stupid things, for sure. But look, Devin Nunes was right about the FISA stuff going years back. You got Rand Paul, who's very, very principled. You got Dan Crenshaw. You got a decent amount of principled and legit Republicans in the party fighting for what they think is right. There are a few Democrats, maybe, but what do we get? What do we get in the press? What do we get from the leadership of the Democrats? Investigations, Trump, Orange Man bad. And I look to that side, and I don't see anything that really makes sense. Look at the moderate Democrats. You'd think these are the people that I could have been like, these are people I would stand by, right? Because they agree they're fighting for kitchen table issues. They didn't. They got into office and then immediately flipped around, and then we're like, we're going to impeach the president. You wasted our time. These people don't fight for their principles. Now look, the Republicans like Mitch McConnell, I gotta be honest, I don't like the guy. That's nothing. It's all professional. I'll be honest. I don't know most of these people personally. There's very few people I would actually directly insult and go after in certain ways. Media people, mostly the people I'm willing to actually slam. Chris Cuomo, I think, is one of the worst human beings on the planet. He is a parasite in the news industry. What he did with faking this whole thing and now lying about it. Maybe I'll get into that later. But the point I'm trying to make is, I care little for tribal sports like party politics. What I want is someone to be true to their word. And I frequently, over the past several years, have seen more Republicans than Democrats doing so. Now, of course, you had all these Republicans hating on Trump and then flipping. I don't like people. Look, I'm going to say it. I don't like Lindsey Graham. I don't like Mitch McConnell. But there are a couple people I do like. Notably, Rand Paul, I think, is a very principled guy. I don't agree with him on some of his policy positions. He's got more conservative positions. But tremendous respect because I think he's actually standing up for what he believes in. And the same is true for Dan Crenshaw. I really don't agree with Dan on foreign policy. I'm more with Tulsi on, get out of the Middle East and all this stuff. And I'm sure, Dan's the expert, not me. But so is Tulsi. So you got an interesting argument there. But there I see two good people. But guess what? The Democrats knocked Tulsi out. They got rid of her. So what am I supposed to do now? Right? I see a couple people. I'm like, I like that Yang guy. I like that Tulsi, lady, major in the National Guard, very respectable. And I see how they treat her. What do you think people like me are going to say when we're looking for a principled? We're going to say the same thing Rose McGowan said. Now look, I've known this for a long time. That's why I laughed when Donald Trump won. Policy-wise, I will lean left, but these people are you know what? They're disingenuous manipulators, and they'll say whatever they got to say to get the keys to the castle. Look at Pelosi. The leadership of the Democratic Party and the leadership of the Republican Party, I have no interest in. But, and maybe I'm wrong about this, name me some Democrats in Congress that you think are doing a good job, because I just don't see it in the press. There are a few people that I saw when it came to the moderate policy positions, but they are being bent by the crooked establishment, and so they deserve nothing from me. So we read Rose McGowan's statement. I think, you can see she's crying, right? I get it. Her whole life now being flipped on its head because she was abandoned when she said Joe Biden was accused, right? There's corroborating evidence. And what did everyone say? We don't care about the woman in this regard. We just want to win. That's the point. Didn't you know, Rose? So what do you think happens to a die-hard activist who really believed they were on the right side when it turns out you were the baddie all along? No, you're going to cry. I don't blame her. I feel bad. Now we can see Alyssa Milanos' response. Alyssa Milano on why she still supports Joe Biden and how she would advise him about Tara Reade allegations. Alyssa Milano is a hypocrite and a liar. She is also an extremely bad person. And I've praised her before because I think it was that, who was that lady? What was her name? I don't even remember her name. It was a couple of years ago. She was a Me Too feminist. Asia Argento. There you go. That was her name. It came to me. Alyssa Milano called her out because she was accused, and I was like, very respectable. Like, there you go, like calling out your own side. But Alyssa Milano is more in the bag for the Democrats. Team sports. It doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong. It doesn't matter if she's actually going to do good and protect people. All that matters is that we win. And here's the thing. That means if she has to throw one of her own Me Too feminists under the bus to win, she'll do it. Asia Argento got tossed aside like, spoiled meat, just right in a dumpster. Joe Biden, though, he's got to win. So she won't go that far. She will sacrifice her own friends so that her tribe can win, but she will not. She will not give up the power. She wrote this op-ed. I don't care to read it, but I do want to point out something I find rather hilarious. She says this: Donald Trump's alleged assaults were clearly wrong. Brett Kavanaugh's actions told consistently over decades by his victim and supported by polygraph results were clearly wrong. You know what, Alyssa? You are a disturbed, evil hypocrite. Evil. Because, listen, I don't care for either accusations against Biden or Kavanaugh. I know Rose McGowan does. Well, I disagree with her. I do. There's a lot of people who think Biden should not be president because of his allegations and a bunch of other more activisty things. I don't agree with those things. I don't think Joe Biden should have to answer for any of this. I really mean it. Joe Biden should not have to come out and answer for a 30-year-old allegation. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Now, I know there's some corroborating evidence, but I do not like this idea of traveling back decades plus to dig up dirt on someone. It is ridiculous. It's I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I can't remember who said this, so forgive me for not crediting you, but maybe it was Kurt Metzger saying that it's like the oil exploration, fossil fuel depletion of outrage culture. They're like, they've run out of things to be mad about, so they got to go further and further back. And here we are in 1993. Now, no disrespect to Tara Reade. She's got an allegation, she's got corroborating evidence. I can respect that, but it's beyond the statute of limitations. So if you're gonna levy these claims against Brett Kavanaugh and you're gonna levy them against Joe Biden, I'm gonna tell you I disagree. But if you're Alyssa Milano and you're Rose McGowan and you say the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, which I disagree with and thought were BS, and they are, if you're gonna stand by those, you got to stand by the ones against Biden, which Rose is doing. Now you don't have to like Rose McGowan. You can think there's some people they call her crazy and stuff like that. No, I don't care. She's standing up for the same principles, and she just is she's going through this rather shock that the Democrats are not the good guys she thought they were. Alyssa Milano is doing everything in her power to twist and contort and now try and manipulate to defend Joe Biden. This comment about Brett Kavanaugh, there's no evidence against Brett Kavanaugh. None, zilch, nada, nothing. Christine Blasey Ford, I think 30 plus years ago, I was at a party with Brett Kavanaugh. He threw me on a bed with this guy, Mark Judge or something. I think that was the guy's name. And then he held me down, they rolled over, and she ran away. Her friend said, I don't remember this. Her friend said, I don't even know if she knew who Brett was. She said, I don't remember how I got there. I don't remember how I got home. She doesn't know where it was. She doesn't know when it happened. Nobody else remembers it. And Brett Kavanaugh isn't even accused of doing anything other than throwing her on a bed. And then they rolled over and she ran away. Joe Biden. Tara Reade knew where they were. She has corroborating witnesses who said they were told about this. She was abruptly removed from her position. She says she filed a complaint. Her mother called into Larry King Live to complain about this. There is a lot of circumstantial evidence against Joe Biden. That's the most pathetic thing about this. In their desperation, the Democrats and the leftists, it would seem that they've set a standard so low that it can easily and instantly be weaponized against them. That is the problem with operating without principle and being a deceiver. You know why you don't lie? Because it becomes hard to keep track of all the lies. And now here you are. You have no idea what you're supposed to say or do. All you know is you're going to lose and it's your own fault. Now, I feel bad for Rose. What a shock, huh? I know there's a lot of people probably watching who went something similar. Brandon Strzok, walk away movement. How many people in the past few years have realized just what the Democratic Party is or has become? I was never, look, I remember when Barack Obama was running, and I'm always skeptical of everybody, especially having been from Chicago. Like what, like the past 3 governors went to prison or something? Not Pritzker, but the other ones. So it's, you look, man, it's a game of power. It's a Game of Thrones, if you will. Everybody's trying to get on top, and they're clawing over bodies to get there. They will lie to you, they will trick you so that you support them. Right now, maybe it's because there's been a flip, maybe it's because of Donald Trump, maybe it's because the establishment Republicans couldn't keep the populists out. But the Republican Party has changed. When I talk to people like Jack Murphy, for instance, you might know him. I had him on my podcast a couple months ago. He used to be a regular old Democrat. Now he's a Trump supporter. You look at people like Dave Rubin. You look at the Walk Away campaign is the best example of it. People realizing that you were supposed to be fighting for all these things and now you're not anymore. And I wonder, let me issue a kind of correction. Maybe you saw me on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple days ago. In it, I said something I frequently say, that I think one of the issues affecting, the left and the right is that the left is more likely to be on the internet. And because of this, they're more influenced by this insane social justice stuff. Joe's response was that, I said it's because rural areas have weaker internet. This is true. It's true. But Joe said, what do you mean? They're on their phones. They're able to do this. And conservatives dominate on the internet. And I started thinking about this. Joe made a really good point that I hadn't considered. First, it is true that internet is weaker in rural areas. Right now, I am in a rural area and I have to record this very early because I have no internet. It's very difficult to make a video. So that means perhaps when it comes to conservative content, they're less likely to be uploading. So you get a more unified message. But that's not necessarily the case, actually. I think that's actually wrong. I think my analysis was inverted. What I think actually may be happening, and then I realized this shortly after, I was like, Joe made a good point. They do have phones. Look, rural areas do have dial-up. I know Joe is like, dial-up? Who's got dial-up? No, trust me. I've been looking at properties in like Pennsylvania, and there are places that only have, it's DSL. It's phone line internet, but it's ridiculously slow. That makes it very hard to produce live shows and to do content like this. You got to upload really, really early. But it is easy to access text-based content. And that's when I realized I think it might be the inverse. It might be that because urban liberals are in big, densely populated cities, they're more likely to telephone with each other as opposed to being on the internet. So take a look at it this way. If you're a Republican or conservative and you go online, you're hearing your opinion from one person. Let's say you live in the middle of the country. You don't have very many people surrounding you relative to a city. So you turn on Timcast and you hear me talk and say, that's interesting. Then there are a bunch of other people who hear me say the same thing, and they all have a rather unified view or a unified argument from me or a statement. It doesn't mean everybody agrees with it, but everybody heard something similar. Now you look at what's going on with liberals in big cities. And one person will watch me go to their friends and play a game of telephone with 500 people, warping and twisting and creating disinformation. Because they're more likely to be talking to each other and their friends, their message is being muddled and mixed, and they don't know necessarily what is the right mainstream approach. This is why it's the new way I'm looking at it. I could be wrong. Like, it's just an assessment. I also want to point out the funny thing where people are like, count how many times Tim Pool says he's not an expert in the Joe Rogan podcast. And I'm like, yes, because I'm trying not to assert things that may not be true. I'm trying to be careful to say, like, here's what I've seen so far. And I could be wrong about things. It's like you try to say, nope, here's what I believe and here's what I know. And they'll call you a moron and an arrogant. And you try and say things like, well, I'm not 100% on any of this stuff, but here's what I've assessed so far. And they'll say, you're just a moron. So that's the game we get to play. Anyway, back to the point. I don't know exactly what we can expect moving forward. And I say this a lot because, and I mean in regards to the Me Too stuff, because I'm not a psychic, man. Everybody wants to assume that what happens right now is static. It's set in stone. It's not. In 1 week, Alyssa Milanos might come out and say I was wrong and I apologize, and I will give her credit. I have no idea. I don't think so. She's doubling down and trying to defend herself and her right to protect someone like Joe Biden who's been accused, going against their own principles. But I don't know what to expect. I'll tell you what I think will happen. I think many, many more Democrats are going to pull a Rose McGowan. Maybe it's not fair to say that. Maybe I should say they're going to pull a Brandon Strzok and walk away. And maybe Rose McGowan should take a look into this stuff. I'm not going to be a party loyalist for anybody ever, and I've never been. I don't care for anyone's tribe. A lot of people are getting behind Trump and the Republican Party. I'm not playing that game. You will not see me play that game. I might vote for him. We'll see what happens because Biden's off the rails. But that doesn't mean I want to be a part of your team. It means I'm sitting here, we're negotiating, and if you make the right play, I'll buy from you. Democrats, you've sold me nothing. In fact, when I look at Rose, it just makes me more sure that I you know what? As much as I've supported many Democrats in the past, not this time. I'm sorry, man. When it comes to, look, I live in a blue district, but I'm really close to Jeff Van Drew, and I'll tell you what, I'm not gonna vote for the blue dudes. Never gonna happen, because I see what they do. They do not stand up for what they claim. They're lying. They said, we're going to get kitchen table issues for all of you. We're going to fund health care and, lowering insurance costs, things that matter, the economy, jobs. And what do? As soon as they got in, they smirked and said, Orange man bad. And I was like, what are you doing? No, stop. Wait, what are you doing? Why? You finally have a chance to prove that you can do something, that you can help the American people. And what do? Russiagate 2, Ukrainian Boogaloo. Bravo. Well, then we got the China stuff. That fell apart. And now we're getting another investigation. Impeachment 2.0. Whatever, man. Rose, I'm sorry you had to deal with this, but I'm glad you're kind of waking up to seeing how things are going on. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.